22 minutes past 5 o'clock, and a couple of Montreal musicians are on their way to getting a barcade going on Saint Laurent. For those of you who don't know, a barcade is a bar with pinball machines. They're calling it a love letter to Montreal. Jeanette Kelly joins me in studio. Hello.
Hi there.
Tell me about this project.
Well, it's the project of Justin Evans and Adam Keisler, two musicians who moved here, Justin from Kelowna and Adam from Winnipeg about 10 years ago. They connected over music and, avant-garde music, graphic design, and their love of pinball. Adam is, in fact, a champion pinball player, and both are collectors who travel around looking for these old pinball machines, and they know how to make them work again. They restore them, they fix them up, and
cool.
They keep them in their dining room. And yet, of course, the girlfriend gets annoyed because there's no room for the dining room table. So they have opened this place on Saint Laurent called North Star Machine à Piastres. So the machine, the money machine, basically, based on the company that worked here in Montreal in the end of the after World War II called North Star Coin Company, making pinball machines. And they've opened this bar on Saint Laurent. Even though you're playing with tokens, it is the Machine à Piastres, it's called.
Okay, so you went in there. What did it look like?
Well, you go upstairs on Saint Laurent, and there's 8 of these old vintage machines on the wall, machines with names like Medusa, a Black Hole, Old Chicago, each of them who's going to make a sound. You'll hear some of that sound in a minute. They kind of talk to you. Designer tables for the bar. There's a beautiful long bar as well. It's kind of has a bit of a Western bar theme look to it. Here's Justin giving me an introduction to the space.
This room is kind of a love letter to Montreal and a love letter to pinball. So we have all kinds of things from the Montreal art community and incredible vintage pinball machines that you can see behind me that have been restored by incredible people from Montreal. And so we have everything from like the world's slowest disco ball to a jukebox curated by one of the coolest record stores in Montreal that'll be curated regularly by Montreal musicians, to an experimental film that's a super kind of clock-like supercut of all the scenes of pinball. It's made by an incredible Montreal filmmaker. We have food by one of the great Montreal chefs, Jeremiah Bullied, that's Quebec tavern food, that's kind of a tribute to the Montreal tavern tradition. And light boxes made by a Montreal experimental visual artist. It's a pretty fun place.
It sounds really fun.
Chock full of stuff. Like there were so many arts and culture stories I could go to there, including, of course, the pinball machine.
And you mentioned this North Star. Yes. What is the history of pinball here in Montreal?
There was a company that operated for a couple of years of Tremblay brothers who built pinball machines in the North Star in the late 1940s, 1950s. There's a big website called Montreal Pinball where you can get all kinds of folklore and information about what happened. I know. Well, I didn't until this morning. And certainly that tradition of playing pinball kind of died out in the 80s. But after that, Justin says, collectors started, collecting these machines and buying them from their homes.
When you're a musician, you play in a lot of bars and you wind up going to a bar and you're waiting for the sound check and there's a pinball machine there and it makes a sound like that. And it's amazing. It draws you in and you fall in love with these things. And I played hundreds of hours of pinball as a musician and as a kid, and really, they serve an incredible purpose in a bar because if you're not feeling social, the pinball is there. It brings wallflowers out. It means everyone can socialize. It gives you something to do. And they're also incredibly beautiful historical objects that we really love. As a graphic designer,
I love the sound it's making.
I know. There was one called Black Hole. You are going into a new black hole. They're hilarious. They're really hilarious. So he hopes that this will just be a place where the music isn't too loud. You can actually visit. You can play pinball. You can have these gourmet drinks that they're making. The food is going to be exquisite. So
okay, it sounds great.
Yes,
but are they not in some kind of a legal limbo?
Well, yes, seemingly kind of temporarily, because pinball machines were forbidden in bars in the 1970s because kids were trying to get in to play for money, and there were issues about prostitution, and so they were eliminated. But the owners have been working with the Plateau Borough, and I talked to the councillor there, Christine Gosselin, earlier today, who said, this project is different. You have to be 18 to get in. You're playing with tokens. You're playing not for money. The project, she thinks, respects the spirit of the law and she calls it a dynamic and wholesome kind of approach. So they they are organizing to update that bylaw, and we'll have it amended this year. So it's seemingly they're going to be fine.
And did you actually meet a pinball wizard?
Well, I did.
You did?
His name is, shall we cue the Who? His name is Adam Keisler, and he is one of the partners. Glad to get the pinball machines. He's the guy who wants the pinball machines out of his dining room.
Right.
We talked about the appeal of pinball.
I grew up, I'm 31 years old. As a youngster, I grew up in the arcades. When I was young in my formative years, there were arcades everywhere. Every shopping mall had an arcade. And I gravitated to the pinball machines because mainly the first reason I would only have limited quarters to spend, and I figured out that if you could get good at the pinball machines, you could earn a free game by achieving a certain score. So my loonie would last a lot longer than a video game. A video game you play once and you're done. And apart from that, I really enjoyed the physical aspect of pinball, having this wild cylinder move around this gigantic box with lights flashing and being able to push the machine. That's part of it too, your physical interaction with the machine.
That's Adam Keisler. And
did you play, Jeanette?
I did.
You did?
The first time I'd ever played, I really got into it. At one point, I had
Sounds
two
like
balls
you're completely
going.
hooked here.
It does, doesn't
You
it?
had two
So
balls
weird.
going?
I had two, yeah. I managed to do rack up enough points to get a second ball in play at the same time. And the lights were going, the lights were flashing, and there was music playing. And you know what? I'm going to go. Women's League is Tuesday nights. The first time they're happening
the Women's League now.
At 7 o'clock tonight. There will be an official opening January the 23rd. I seriously would love to go back.
All right.
It
And
just
it's on
does
Saint
seem
Laurent.
like it's on 3908 Saint Laurent, yes.
Jeanette,
it is
thank
open now,
you.
official grand opening on the 23rd.
All right,
You're welcome.
I'll see if I can get pictures out of Jeanette and retweet them.
Sure.
And I guess, can you watch it on TV tonight? Or
You can
doing
watch it on TV
All right.
tonight, yes.
All right. Looking forward to that.